Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and several people link me this study. It's come through several times. Some people are like, hey, there's a new study out. It's actually suggesting that maybe bodybuilders need even more protein than you recommend that they need to take in. So will you take a look at it? So I did. And let me put on my +5 out of weaponsmithing, do a little bit of crafting, and let's talk about this. All right, guys. The problem with this study is that it doesn't tell us a lot. This study wasn't done to challenge what most sports dietitians and dietitians for top-level elite athletes trying to gain muscle are regarding protein intake. That's not what this was about. This was supposed to challenge some Institute of Medicine, which has stated that people lifting weights don't need above the RDA to gain muscle. Now, let's just be frank here. We don't even need to look at that or think about the RDA on it, because here's the reality of it. The RDA is something like 60 grams of protein a day, 50 grams of protein a day. It's really, really low. Anyone who is athletic and lifting weights and training hard, who is consuming enough calories to gain muscle, is not going to be able to get their protein that low. Let's be honest, unless you're eating a fruitarian vegan diet and completely avoiding all high protein foods, there's no way it's even remotely fucking imaginable that you're only going to eat 60 grams of protein. So why this even needs to be debated or be a topic is kind of beyond me. No, seriously, a lot of you need, 3,000 calories at least to gain muscle? A lot of active, healthy men? How in the fuck do you only get 60 grams of protein on 3,000 calories if you're eating mostly whole foods? What if you eat some meat? Oh my God, what if you eat some dairy in there? I mean, it's hard to do it to go that low, even if you're eating a grain and bean-based vegan diet. You can't get that low. And my God, what if you eat meat too? I mean, it's hard to stay under 100 grams of protein. It actually really is. 3,000 calories of pasta has over 100 grams of protein in it. 300 calories of spaghetti, just like meatless spaghetti, has over 100 grams of protein. How in the fuck are you going to get your protein that low if you're eating real food and you're actually really active and burn a lot of calories? You can't. So even debating on the RDA on that is absurd. I mean, because what are they eating? Nothing but a banana diet? I mean, if they join Freely or something, how do you only get 60 grams of protein on 3,000 plus calories? It's just not mathematically really feasible for people eating a varied whole food diet. So why we're debating this, I don't even know. But people are saying, hey, let's look at these bodybuilders, and they've been training at least 3 years, and they did this study on their breath and determined that when resting, they probably need at least 1.7 grams per kilo of body weight. That's not a terrible figure, but here's the thing that I always tell people. When you bring out a single study that challenges widely held notions by experts and scientists and people already who have a lot of data and many, many years of experience, but particularly with an applied science like sports nutrition. That's an applied science, guys. When you have people using older data, and those people are winning gold medals in strength sports in the Olympics and winning Super Bowls and stuff, the people that they're giving this advice to, taking their advice, you damn well better have some really, really, really good fucking data if you want to challenge that. And a study on 8 people, I don't think so. One study on 8 people, you're going to challenge nutritionists who oftentimes are researchers themselves, who are making recommendations to people winning the Super Bowl and who have gold medals in Olympic lifting and stuff. Again, I'm not going to buy that. And the reason I say that is that it's been shown repeatedly that strength athletes, when they're in a phase to where they're trying to maximize muscle gain, that eating somewhere between 1 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So let me put that into perspective. If you're 100 kilos, that's 220 pounds, you need somewhere between 100 and 160 grams of protein to gain muscle mass quickly. Like when you're in a phase and you're training to where you're trying to gain muscle. All right? That's the generally accepted consensus among sports nutritionists for elite athletes around the world. Now people will say, well, bodybuilders are trying to gain more muscle than they are. No, they fucking aren't. And what delusional world do people live to where they think that a bodybuilder is going to gain muscle faster than an NFL player or an Olympic lifter when their coach and nutritionists decide they want to maximize muscle gain? they're trying to maximize muscle gain during that phase too, because they want to get them in as much muscle on them as quickly as possible so they can get them back to their more sport specific training. All right, they don't want them to do really long muscle gaining phases. If they want to put 5 pounds of muscle on them in X amount of time, they want to do it as quickly as possible. They don't want to take longer than necessary to get that 5 pounds of muscle. If they want to move them up a weight class or something, all right, they don't want to take a long time to do it. So yes, they have the exact same goals a bodybuilder does during that time, to gain maximum muscle mass. Again, people don't think these things through. You know, when you're working with a world-class athlete and you need to get them in a different weight class, you don't fuck around with it. When championships and medals and millions of dollars are on the line, you don't fuck around with it. Bodybuilders fuck around because they know there's no real money in what most of them do. It's not as serious. They actually are less likely to be successful because they're more likely to fuck around and use unproven methods. Let's just be honest here. These are what people who have multi-million-dollar contracts on the line are told by the top experts. And it works. It works. That's how much protein you need to consume to gain muscle. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with consuming more, and that's going to be the counter argument that's going to be made towards bodybuilding. And I've seen this made. They're like, well, bodybuilders, if they choose to eat more protein, it's fine because they don't need as many carbs as a real athlete does because they don't train as hard. And that's going to piss bodybuilders off, but it's true. Seriously, how many pro bodybuilders do you know whose actual total training, not just their hour a day of lifting weights, their total year-round training is more intensive than an NFL player? Particularly an NFL player getting ready who wants to compete in a bowl game, to get to the Super Bowl. Come on, I mean, seriously, in bodybuilding, if you do 2 or 3 hours of conditioning work every day, people are like, oh, that's too much, that's interfering with your gains. I mean, that's how fucking lazy bodybuilders are from an athletic perspective. They actually think doing 2 or 3 hours of cardio a day is too much. Or 2 hours of conditioning work every day in addition to your weight training. So again, understand the difference. The argument has been made that, well, because bodybuilders don't train as intense, they don't have to focus on getting in as many carbs, and if they just want to eat more protein and less carbs, they'll be fine because they don't really train that hard. They don't really do that much. A bunch of curls and lat pull downs doesn't compete with having to combine high level conditioning work for hours a day with weight training and sport specific training and practice and everything else. So it's okay if they end up replacing some of their necessary carbs with protein or whatever. It doesn't matter. That's the argument made, and I get that. That's fine, and that's why I'll say, okay, if a bodybuilder wants to eat more protein, that's fine, as long as it's not interfering with your training because you're struggling to get enough carbs in to do all of the training that you want to do or you need to do to reach your goal. Then it's perfectly fine. For a serious athlete, though, eating too much protein could interfere with the amount of carbohydrate intake they need because it might suppress their appetite. It might replace necessary calories that they really need for training fuel that protein isn't going to provide as effectively when they're trying to be at their peak performance. So then that is an actual valid argument. That's a valid argument. But the whole point is still that ultimately, if the best athletes in the world have been repeatedly found to only need that much protein to gain muscle, that's generally what's recommended for strength athletes or weightlifting athletes is the range to gain muscle. I'm not willing to say that you're going to be able to take a single study on 8 people that didn't measure muscle gain, by the way. There was no measurement of muscle gains taken. That I'm not going to take a study where they're discussing basic protein needs from a nutritional perspective to where they've done tests on carbon dioxide being exhaled and stuff like that. I'm not really going to say that that's comparable because, again, there was no study done on muscle gains, meaning you take a 220-pound guy who needs 100 to 150 grams of protein and you give him 130 grams of protein, and you take 20 of those guys and you take another group with 20 other guys and give them 200 grams. If the guys eating 200 grams of protein don't gain more muscle than the guys eating 130 over a 12-week period of time, confirmed with DEXA scan and maybe muscle biopsies, then there's no need to worry about it. But this didn't study any of that. This didn't study that. This study did not mention a single measurement taken of long-term muscle gains. So when we're talking about protein needs like that for gaining muscle and everything, I don't understand why anyone is referencing this study in terms of muscle gains. Because I don't think anyone in the athletic world is really saying that you need to consume the RDA, that's all you need to gain muscle. There's a higher range in the RDA given, and it's generally 1 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight, which is 100 to 160 grams if you weigh about 220 pounds. And that's a reasonable amount. If your training is on point, rest is on point, you're consuming enough calories, that's adequate. And eating more than that probably isn't going to put any more muscle on you. It's very unlikely and probably won't. And in some cases, it might negatively affect your training due to being not properly balanced nutrition. In some cases, it could be detrimental. I'm not saying it will be, but it can be. And this study didn't even really look at any of that. So this study was just done to show that people have higher needs, bodybuilders who are lifting weights have higher protein needs than sedentary people like the RDA. That's all it was looking at. But to be honest, guys, I mean, a single study done on any subject that only has 8 test subjects is absolutely not going to give you conclusive evidence of anything at all. I mean, it's interesting that they're doing it, and I understand what their point was, but people are misconstruing this as something totally different, something completely different. And it just is what it is. But yeah, I'm not going to say that this study shows that the current recommendations that most of those sports nutritionists out there give is wrong, because it really doesn't prove that at all. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.